Hello everybody and welcome to the February edition of Marshall Community Services News. My name is Cam Bailey and for the next 30 minutes or so we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the community in the month of February, and then I'm going to bring on a special guest for this show. So we're going to get started right away because I want to allow enough time for our special guest who will unravel here in a couple minutes to everybody. So coming up here shortly, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of bit about it on social media, is an introduction to curling session, which is going to be actually this Sunday night, end of January, January 28th, over at the Red Baron Arena and Expo. A free event for everyone to come out and try to throw some stones or rocks or whatever you want to call them and learn the game of curling. And actually off of this, we're going to branch off and start a league for curling as well. So again, mark your calendar for the 28th. If you did miss this date and it's in the middle of February, get a hold of us because we've had a lot of interest on curling. A couple other classes coming up here in late January, early February. Zumba with the Shake is going to be taking place over at West Main Street, and that'll be 5:30 to 6:30. There's an ECFE Young at Art class going on Mondays, January 29th through February 12th over at the ECFE classroom. Icky Sticky Fun, creating more fun, 3 to 5 over at the Marshall Middle School. A wireless workshop session, January 31st, 7:30 to 8:30 over at Minnesota Valley Communications. You'll get to discuss different apps, functions, and how to work there. Freezer meals, Monday, February 5th, 6 to 9 p.m. over at the Marshall High School. You get to make all kinds of great products, from bacon cheddar, twice baked potatoes, to freezer kits, to chicken wild rice bake. I mean, you name it, freezer meals coming up there. So that's coming up. XL for everyday use, 7 to 9 p.m. over at the Marshall Media Center on Tuesday, February 6th and Tuesday, February 8th. We also offer gymnastics lessons, small group lessons, Tuesdays and Thursdays. This will be session 2 in February. So if you've got a youngster ages 4 through 12 that's interested in gymnastics, they still have a little time to register for that. A couple dance classes coming up. Mini Movements dance class Tuesdays over at Parkside, and then also a Discovering dance class Tuesdays at Parkside. That's for boys and girls from ages 3 to 3rd grade. So if you've got a youngster interested in dance class, make sure you get registered for that. Intro to Pro Tools and Introduction to Home Recording Your Music. Fun class there, 10:30 to 12:30 over at the Note Gallery. Saturdays, February 10th and Saturday, February 17th. Also, we're going to try a brand new league, Adult Knocker Ball, which will be a bubble soccer league. I'm sure you've seen this on YouTube and different things like that, where you get inside a bubble and you play soccer. Pretty fun event, good workout as well. That's going to be Sunday evenings starting February 11th, so you can start forming your teams now. Also, beginning quilting for adults, Mondays, February 12th through April 2nd over at Fabrics Plus. Also, we continue our Marshall Middle School after school program for all 5th through 8th graders, which meets Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. And then finally, our Red Baron Arena Open skate sessions continue on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Fridays and Saturdays typically is 7 to 10, and Sundays is typically 7 to 9. And make sure you check the schedules because that does vary a little bit based on what's happening at the Red Baron Arena. So as you can see, I zipped through kind of what's going on here late January, early February, and a lot of different classes, courses. We're kind of in the prime time of winter where it's a little chilly outside, not a lot of outside events going on. But again, make sure you check out our brochure, which is our Winter Spring Brochure 2018 edition. I'm sure Doug's had this on in the past, where we've covered really the months of December through mid-April. So make sure you go through that. Everything I mentioned briefly is more in detail in our brochure, which is also online as well. You can register online at ci.marshall.mn.us. So again, a lot of things happening. A lot of our programs really kicked up after January, more so on my side on the youth programs and things like that, from soccer to gymnastics to volleyball, basketball, things like that. They're all kind of up and running here early January and continue on. So again, I apologize for kind of zipping through that, but I wanted to allow enough time because typically I'm not the one that's in front of the camera to start off this Marshall Community Services News, but I have a special guest with me. It's his final show, so we want to allow enough time to kind of hit on major key topics in 40 years plus of working with Marshall Community Services News. My special guest today is Mr. Doug Goodman. He's a familiar face to the show, but he's in a different seat today. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Cam, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of our viewers and Community Access TV. And of course, as you mentioned, it is time for me to take that great leap and do a little retirement. I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to work within our Marshall Community Services program, formerly known as the Parks, Recreation, and Community Ed program, for all of these years, and from all the wonderful people that I've had the chance to meet, to serve on committees with, to our families. It's been a wonderful time, and I really appreciate it.
Well, you know, and we joked earlier this week, of course, the Vikings in true fashion broke our hearts. And Doug just hit on 40 years of being with the city of Marshall, and I joked with him saying that in all your time working, you never seen the Vikings go to the Super Bowl, because it's been 41 years since they've been to the Super Bowl. Now, you've been alive for many of those, but as you were an employee with the city of Marshall, you never got there. So hopefully in my time, we still might see that. But as I kind of prepped for the show, and I thought, I should just put him on the spot, and what should I ask him, and where do we start? I mean, 40 years in the same position, in the same organization is a long time for anybody. And I told him prior to the show, we got to reflect a little bit, and we'll also use some time to thank many people in the community. But as you look at your 40 years, and we kind of always joke too, when you start and you finish, you kind of have a book. What's in the book? Many different chapters. What are some of the accomplishments that you think of that, you know, you really had a hand in, a staple in, that you're proud of over your time?
Well, that's a great question, and I don't even know if I have a great answer, but I maybe should begin back in the late 70s when I had the opportunity to begin working for the City of Marshall, which is also a major part of the Marshall Public Schools, and as everyone knows, we are a connected entity, funded by both. And so back in that late 70s, there was a position that was open. I happened to see it in the paper, introduced myself to the director at that time, was Mr. Bob Bierscheid, and the rest is kind of history. I began as a recreation specialist, much the same way you began a number of years ago. Took care of the summer youth baseball program, and kind of evolved from there, and the community ed aspect of it was setting up classes with hobbies, skills, and crafts. And probably the most interesting thing is back then there was no internet, there was no computers. Right. I and Bob Bierscheid, the director at that time, we shared one phone, had 2 desks, and we had a half-time secretary. So if you think about that evolvement to where we are today, when you look at our brochure and see the many wonderful people that are part of our program full-time, and then you also throw in all of the seasonal temporary people, right. I've had the opportunity to hire and work with not only the city employees, but also all of the school district people, and including, as a graduate of SMSU, stay connected with all of the staff and faculty out here. Mm-hmm. So I guess the biggest part of my job is to have met so many wonderful people. And now moving forward, I hope to continue those relationships, and just maybe a little different twist to it, but still have some fun doing what I have called kind of my dream job over the last 40 years.
Right. You know, and we said too, and I think you tried to do a little math of, many people know and many people don't know that what we do in both our positions throughout the course of the years, we hire a lot of seasonal employees, you know, and we kind of joked that in your time, probably, I think we said 8,000 seasonal employees throughout your time, because many people forget that you had a big part of the aquatic center for many years. You ran that aquatic center flawlessly for many years, and that staff alone is 50, 60 plus every summer, and you do the math, and you had a lot of people that, and even in my position with being with the city for 14 years, it's their first job. It's their first time, and we're probably one of the first ones that interview them, and we've got many stories to tell on, you know, they have to just answer the questions, but that's what we do. We train them and get them to where they're at now.
Well, and as my retirement, which I started planning back in November, and now it's here at the end of January, I've heard from so many of those, specifically some of those part-time people that now are out very successful in their professional lives, have kids, and even some of them have grandkids now, that they remember that very first job. And you and I remember our very first jobs, and how that supervisor or the boss influenced how they got into the working force and proceeded through their educational years, and then becoming outstanding young citizens. And you're right, a lot of wonderful people, and again, they are a key part of the success of our program. It isn't just the people that work in the office, but you know, surrounding yourself with good part-time people, surrounding yourself with great teammates, and that's the key to a successful program. And with the technology that's happened in the last 40 years, that's only enhanced the way we work with the public, the way we work with our families, and all the people that we come in contact with, including SMSU. I remember some of the very first times that the SMSU TV department were doing telethons, and community access, public access have all been a part of the years. You mentioned the aquatics program, and I'm so thankful. We've never in those 40 years had a serious fatality. We were at one time running, 1,600 kids through Learn to Swim lessons. Everybody needs to learn to swim, and the Marshall Aquatic Center, which has had a couple, 3 different upgrades during that time, has become a wonderful facility. And in fact, all of our community services facilities have been an integral part of our program's success. I think everybody knows our park system is outstanding. Whether it have been Tom Polfleet or our new current coordinator, Preston Stensrud, our parks are something we can be very proud of. And with parks comes sports venues, something that has provided us with the opportunity to host youth tournaments, adult tournaments, utilize both all of our school district facilities, our city facilities, and even SMSU by providing great facilities. And then coming in with maybe one of the other most influential things I've been connected with is the officiating side of it. And I began officiating back in 1973, which was before I joined the community services. Our philosophy, and you agree with me, I know, is that if you have great facilities and great officials, you're going to have great sporting events. And that has been, I think, Marshall's showcase over the years. Getting local businesses and sponsors to help out. Again, that's part of the, I think, the quality of Marshall, and why people love Marshall and stay here, and maybe grow up, go to school, and then come back to Marshall after they started raising families. But it's attractiveness, I think, and that has made a real big difference. And it really been a part of my whole entire career here with community services.
Well, and like you said, officiating, and you're one of the ones that got me into officiating of basketball, and I know you've tried to get me to do some of the baseball things, and I said I'm going to stick with what has a clock on it, so I know when it starts and when it stops. But you're right. You're still going to be an integral part of the Minnesota State High School League and their officials and a lot of observation things. And I always joked with you, too, of how many games did you officiate, from football to basketball to baseball to soccer. I mean, the list and the number is high, but you meet so many people. And I think what we do in a profession, it's all about networking. It's all about getting out in the community, meeting people, developing those relationships, if it's SMSU, if it's the high school, the middle school, the schools, the businesses. That's what makes community services run, and that's what you've done a nice job of. And I know this past week, as you're getting your office kind of cleaned out after 40 years, and you're getting those emails from people, and I'll say, hey, so-and-so said congratulations, and you'll say, hey, I remember that person from 1984, and they did this, and you remember those relationships that you had, and you continue those and still keep in contact with those people. So it's kind of full circle from back then to now. We joke too, and people ask us now, what do you do in the course of a day, and how does your day operate? And I use the analogy, and I think you agree, you can take a basketball in your hands and drop it on the floor. Where's it going to come? It's going to come right back up in your hands. Our days is you drop a football on the floor, you don't know which way that football is going to go. And if that's dealing with families or postponements, weather-related issues, just things like that. Every day is a little different. And like you said, this is kind of your dream job of 40 years, and now you can kind of close that book. And I joke with you on, okay, now you got to get the fishing pole back out, and you got to get the golf clubs back out and dust those off, and enjoy life a little bit more. And of course, you've got grandkids now, and I think you'll have a lot to do to stay busy, which shouldn't be a problem. So,
No, I agree. Having that time now to focus on some of the things that we haven't been able to, and you know this as well as I do, that if you're part of the Marshall Community Services Park and Recreation Program, it isn't an 8 to 4:30 or an 8 to 5 job.
Right.
Because the majority of your activities will happen after 4:30, 5 o'clock, whether it be your sports leagues, whether it be community ed classes, holidays, special events, different things where you're planning things for the community, and of course working on our brochure. And our mission statement, which is spot on, and I share this with those viewers out there, the mission of the Marshall Community Services Program is to promote or provide through leadership, facilitation, partnerships, and collaboration, an enriched community experience for all citizens. And that is exactly, I think, what our staff has done for a number of years and continues to do, whether it be something new, whether it be something old, or reoccurring. The opportunity to do this kind of work has been a blessing, and every day is a little different. I mean, yeah, you do some of the same programs in the fall that you did last fall, but we've always tried to do something different, tweak it a little bit, try something new, and from that expansion and growth and support from the community has been there. And I really appreciate all the local businesses, the organizations, our local sports associations have been huge in working with us to make these events, which of course come to Marshall and bring economic impact.
Right.
I think you see the Red Baron Arena and Expo, which is a wonderful facility, as part of the venues in Marshall that do create an impact and really have provided Marshall with maybe the recognition that this is a great place to bring your kids to do sporting events. Our high school teams do well. Everybody enjoys sports, and families come to Marshall and have a lot of fun, and that's kind of been the key. And then you throw in the bike trails and the new Camden Trail and all of the wonderful things that have happened with that. Again, it isn't just sports. It's recreation, it's leisure, it's enjoying our park system, our trails. Finding those other things to do are also important, and that's all about rec and leisure. And that, again, has a great impact on our residents and our visitors to this community.
Right, and you think back, too, in your time, and you probably have some examples of many state tournaments that were brought to the city. I don't know if the years were, was it 89 was a baseball? There's some baseball state tournaments in there. We've had some different adult sports and things like that. But as you mentioned, that stuff all brings people to town. And we've sat on many shows where we're not a lakes and destination in the summertime, but when we bring activities in, if it's a sporting event or if it's something in the arts where they're coming to town, that's what we're all about, and we continue to do that. And you had a vital role in that, if it was state high school league section softball and baseball, to back in the day when you were in the rec side and the adult tournaments and spending many hours in the sun and working those events. And of course, a lot of that is behind the scenes stuff, and I know you've said that many times. You're kind of that behind the scenes guy. You're not out in the limelight and saying, hey, here's who I am. Many people know you, but I think there's a lot of value in that where you need those guys to get your hands dirty and make sure that every T's crossed and I's dotted, and it takes people like that to make that happen. So that's great. How about favorite memories? Do you have any favorite memories that stick out to you that you just, comes to your mind over 40 years working with the City of Marshall? I know one thing, I'm not going to take this, but Kirby Puckett. I know you've said many times Kirby Puckett was in Marshall back in the late 80s, if it was early 90s. I mean, I know you've said that many times. But anything stick out to you that you just kind of,
Well, and Kirby, of course, was the famous Minnesota Twin, for those younger folks that have heard the name but never knew Kirby Puckett, but he was part of the Twins World Series championships back in the early 2000s. Another wonderful memory that I have was we were focusing on community ed, and kind of working the boomer generation, and we've had millennials and boomers and whatever they all are.
Right.
But the boomer generation was a concerted effort with Barb Lipinski over at the Adult Community Center, where we brought Jerry Mathers, or for those older folks, the Leave It to Beaver. He was Beaver Cleaver, and he came to Marshall, and I had the opportunity to be his host and gave him my tour of Marshall and hauled him around, and we had a wonderful reception for him, and he was a great speaker. He's one that I'll always remember as part of that. But you know, it's a combination of things. So whether it be some great officials that I've met over the years, the Jerry Markbrights and some of the NFL, NBA. I've met some of those officials, but that's again been part of it, in meeting those people and getting to know them. Creating some friendships has always been, you know, what has been a highlight for me. Just being an effective communicator, because those people are all just like us.
Right.
They'll sit down and have a nice chat with you, and that's what it's all about. And of course, my mentors, whether it be Bob Bierscheid, who gave me the first position, or Harry Wyloggy, who I met at a softball tournament, and he was in the batter's box and I was the umpire, and I stepped out. I knew he'd been hired to be my supervisor, and we introduced ourselves, and for the next 35 years we became I guess the administration of Marshall Community Services good friends. Our family all grew up together.
Right.
And special thanks to Harry, as he was kind of the visionary guy and I was kind of the behind the scenes guy. But you know, those behind the scenes guys that make sure everything happens the way it's supposed to are what sometimes creates even more of an impact, because people like to come participate in something.
Right.
And you know, it's like if you have a wonderful dinner and maybe you pay a little bit more,
Yeah.
but if everything's perfect, it's a great experience.
Right.
If you have a little bad thing or something minor goes wrong, people tend to kind of remember that.
Right.
And I think for the most part, our team at Marshall Community Services excels at that, makes that their focus.
Right.
And so those people, Bruce Lamprecht at the Marshall School District, the business manager, has been a great part of my career. I work very closely, as we all know, our city operates with budget necessities, and how you work through your advisory boards, your school boards, your city councils. All that are a part of providing service to our residents and the surrounding area. And Marshall really has become a regional center and grown over the course of the 40 years. I think back to where I can remember the boundaries of Marshall. And now, and the population wasn't very big. And now look at it 40 years later, there really has been successes that have occurred, and I'm just a little part of that, because so many people contributed, supported, and made it happen, and that's what's been kind of the best part of this job.
Right, and you make a good point. If you ever go around town with Doug, he'll say, "I remember when this used to be here," and because I mean, again, in 40 years, if it's Independence Park, or if it's the bike trails, or if it's the aquatic center, or from the old, the arena, it used to be a bubble, I believe that was before my time, to what it was and to what it was now. So I always kind of joke, you're kind of the walking history of Lyon County, because you've got a lot of that history, and you remember a lot of that stuff and who had vital, important roles. And I mean, the 4th of July event, from what that started at to where it's at now, was a big piece of the community as well, which you had a vital part in too.
That's another great moment, or a great remembrance, is the 4th of July, which I remember initially working with Hy-Vee, was out by the airport at the old softball complex, and then gradually moved to Independence Park, which of course is one of my favorite holidays, although I need to thank my family, and especially my wife Robbie, who's been there through thick and thin, and
Right.
helped with whether it was I was officiating or she was officiating and she was at the scoring table, or helping at the 4th of July, making sure the kites were 500 kites, and the fishing contests, and my family were all a part of that, having them step up, and of course the long hours again, being away from home, which now I'll have that opportunity to not only enjoy my family a little more, but my grandkids,
Right.
and again, continue the quality of life that I think is really key in our community of Marshall, and looking forward to some good times ahead. I'm right now I haven't got anything really major planned, but I'm open and flexible, whether it be volunteering for something or being part of the workforce. But you got to keep moving.
Right.
And I have my Fitbit on that
That's right.
if you're not moving, it's going to shake your arm a little bit saying, get moving.
That's right.
And so that's all part of it.
Yeah.
And again, special thanks to all the wonderful people at City Hall in all the departments. Again, as a team, we all have challenges. We all have things we need to adjust or figure out how to deal with certain issues. But it's been a very successful and wonderful career for me at Community Services, and thank you to all of those wonderful people. I've met so many wonderful people,
Right.
and that's been the pure pleasure of effective communication, getting to know people's talents, skills, their families, and really being a part of this great community and the surrounding communities. The State High School League and all my adventures out in the gyms and the fields have given me the chance to meet a lot of those wonderful people, still stay involved around the sports world.
Right.
And I'm still doing that a little bit, working for you as a 7th and 8th grade basketball coach, and then all my other responsibilities with the State High School League. So it's been good.
Well, and the nice thing is you're not leaving Lyon County. You'll be around, so if anyone needs a babysitter out there for their kids or something like that, we can always call Doug now, and he'll gladly help out. So that's nice. You're not relocating. You're in town, so you'll be still a vital part of the community. And who knows? I don't know what the evolution of this show will be going forward. Do you remember back when this started? Do you know way back when the TV show started? Again, probably before my time.
Well, it sure was before your time, but it was one of those shows that cable access, and Marshall got internet and coaxial cable long before some of the other parts of the state of Minnesota, which again was a quest that people had. They got it done. They worked together. The collaboration with the university and our community, our local cable providers made it happen, and Marshall Community Services News began a number of years ago. I talked to one of my former staff people that helped with that, and we did Marshall Community Services News and shows and highlights, and did a lot of video features, which Game of the Week was one of the things where we utilized SMSU students as our play-by-play announcers and camera operators. That worked pretty well till one night a camera fell off the roof of the softball complex building, and we kind of scaled back a little bit of that, but it has continued to grow. Ryan Myberg, Alex Peterson, and all their great staff have just really expanded what community access is capable of. And if you continue to watch these shows, and I hope Community Services News continues, you're going to see some great footage and great programming that's available right here on your local channels. And it's a great way to showcase the history, the tradition, and how Marshall's moving forward, whether it be from Studio One, like we are right here on SMSU, or from the drone, or wherever those guys are out there. The arena's all geared up for quality programming. But again, that's all part of what Community Services provides, and that's what's wonderful about it.
Right. All right, our time is up, they're saying, so this is the last time you can close the Marshall Community Services News, and I'll be quiet and let you close the show.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone in terms of the community, my family, and all of those wonderful staff, instructors, faculty members across this community and from the past and the future. Wish them the best. Continue to stay active with Marshall Community Services programs and activities. Stay involved. And as I started back 40 years ago, as I closed every radio show and TV show, this is on behalf of Cam Bailey. My name is Doug Goodman, urging you to keep fit, mentally involved, and enjoy life by participating in your Marshall Community Services programs and activities. Thank you, and have a wonderful next couple of years. Thank you.